Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. Not quite sure if the chat's going to work on this screen now. Tell you what, give me just 2 seconds. Just want to see if that actually does work. I think it might end up swiping it every time if I change screens and stuff, which would be a bit of a pain in the ass. I go into there. Let's just copy that, go into the show. Let's try placing that in here. There we go. Brilliant. It's taken me a few hours today to actually get the chat working. It's fiddly because you have to import the widget from Streamlabs OBS. And it involves kind of linking a few things up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. I understand it's Eurovision tonight, apparently. Not something I have an awful lot of interest in, I have to say. But congratulations to Ukraine in advance. And yeah, you know what? I can go fair enough. Fuck it. Frankly, they can do with the gesture, if nothing else. So the Eurovision, that embarrassing event should have been scrapped years ago. Simon, you're in fine curmudgeon form tonight. I don't watch the Eurovision myself. I find it a little bit cheesy. Too cheesy for my liking. But yeah. Here for the Russians' entry, The Sound of Silence. Like I say, I think it's oops, I did it again. Because they seem to be making a habit of this, don't they? And of course, it's Porous Boohoo. I don't know what their entry is, to be honest with you. But yeah. Out of the two. Put it this way, I'm not on Putin's side, put it that way. But enough of the politics, because that's a really depressing subject to get onto. It's just world events that should not be happening. It's it's all a bit horrific, to say the least. Best part of Eurovision is long gone. Terry Wogan. Yes. Oh, he was the face of it for God knows how many years, wasn't he? And I always loved that kind of slightly bemused look on his face when some largely unremarkable country kind of come out with some weird sort of fusion of pop and folk songs. Something like that. But yeah, the look on his face was always amazing. Especially when you just got these really, really weird sort of act come on. I've never really watched it. I've only seen bits of it just because of, it's unavoidable to a degree, isn't it? Dollar was the UK's entry the last time you watched it. I can't even remember what they were like, to be honest with you. God, that was a long time ago. They keep us all up with the Eurovision shenanigans, so you do that, Richard. So last year I left early to play RE8. This year, well, I'm looking forward to what the movie is. Okay. Yeah. I've been out today. I'll show you my new baby. I just picked this bad boy up. Neos R. It is a chunk of a bloody camera, I can tell you that much. But my God, there's a few things which I'm not in full agreement with. Like all the focusing on it is electronic. So you've got a little bezel here, and you have to sort of half push the button and kind of use that to focus, which makes life a little bit trickier. But it's as much to do with sort of getting used to it and that kind of thing. And because it's all electronic as well. It gets through the batteries quite fast, so I've had to pick up a couple of spare batteries for it, but it is a nice camera. Good God. if you can't get one or two good shots with a camera like that, then I don't know what you're doing. But I'm glad I worked up to it, because quite frankly, if I'd gone straight to something like this, I would not have known what to do. Nice thing is, one of the really nice things is it's got the movable screen, which is really, really handy. So if you want to do a kind of really low shot, you don't have to sort of get down on the ground and lie down. But yeah, so I picked up that's technically second hand, the body, because it came body only. But it's practically brand new. It's barely been used, and I kind of got that, and I got the lens. The lens was quite expensive. Well, I see, it's quite expensive. It wasn't that expensive really, but it's still a chunk of money. The lens was about 800 quid, but it's quite nice. Get some good images. So I've been playing with that all day today, which has been quite fun. Got quite a fun shot of. I was walking through some woodland, and a squirrel sort of ran out 10 metres ahead of me, and there was a robin bit about 5 metres up from it, and the squirrel was just like looking at the robin, and I got a quick shot of the thing. See, I saw mirrorless. Yes, it is. It's a 30.3 megapixel full frame mirrorless camera. It's really nice. The only thing I think, apparently, some people sort of have said that it's lacking in the video recording sort of department, which is not a big deal for me, because I'm not a videographer or nothing like that. And from what I can tell, the differences are pretty minimal. So yeah, I'm kind of psyched for that thing. There's a few extra bits I want to get for it. I pretty much over the next few years want to be spending about $3,000 on some bits and pieces. So it's about 3 extra lenses and a 2-time extender. And then I'll have a camera that will last me for donkey's years, because that's more than enough camera for me. I don't need to go any higher than that particularly. It is pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. Getting used to it's been quite interesting, challenging, a little frustrating at points, but overall fun. Photography is just a wonderful hobby, and it's nice. It gets you out of the house once in a while. So I went down to Magog Down and had a bit of a wander around. So it was all good. But yeah. Dear oh dear. Yeah. Things I've been watching. Well, I keep meaning, I haven't got around to watching Soylent Green yet. I am going to watch it again at some point very soon. Probably this weekend, actually. I'm going to make an effort, because I have seen it before, but it was a while back, and don't think I was in quite the right frame of mind to sit through it. But yeah. You're going to message... okay. The Canon M50 mirrorless is such a great camera to have in your back pocket. Mirrorless has been a bit of a game changer in terms of size and weight. That fucking thing is heavy. Those RF lenses are just... They're a chunk. They're much bigger in terms of how big the barrel is. I do tend to find they're a little bit over the top in vignetting, which is, for those who don't know, vignetting is the... in the corners where it goes, you lose light in the corners, which is, it's controllable and all that kind of stuff, but it's quite prominent on that, where it wasn't on my previous camera. But I would like to see your camera, actually, John, sometime. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know the M50. I've never got my hands on one. But yeah. So I did finally get round to watching Jackass Forever, and it's great fun. It's great fun. It's got a whole bunch of new faces in it, which some people would find intrusive to some degree. But to be honest, it felt more like the original TV series, because the movies have always really kind of concentrated on the main cast. Of course, the notable absence of Bam Margera, which is a real shame. Because I've been following Steve-O doing his Facebook posts and all that kind of stuff. And he kind of recounts the amount of times that he got interventions and all that kind of stuff throughout the years, and how most of them failed and all that kind of stuff. And when they tried to do one for Bam, and he pretty much threw it back in their face, which is kind of par for the course with some of these things. But yeah, Richard says Soylent Green is people. Yes, it is. Spoiler alert. It's one of the most comprehensively spoiled films, isn't it, really? Because it's pretty much the one thing that people know about that movie is that line. And it's the spoiler. It's a big spoiler. Bam was kicked off the film for being drugged up. Yes, he was. He's been having real problems. I don't know the guy. I kind of... I'm tempted to feel some sympathy for him, because I think he's going through stuff and is either just not aware that he needs help or is unwilling. It's not uncommon in those kind of situations. But when Steve-O comes to you and goes, right, I'm doing an intervention, it's like, then you're probably in trouble. But yeah, it's a real shame. I hope he gets himself sorted out, because he was always one of my favourites in the past. But he's got to kind of want to be helped, hasn't he? Really, it's real shame. But yeah, that is good, and those guys are really kind of going for it in this film. They don't hold back despite their age. Johnny Knoxville, that cover shot, he got really fucked up on that. I mean, it was one of those hits where he hits the ground, and if you've ever found someone unconscious and they're snoring, there's a problem. But definitely worth a watch if you like Jackass. I like Jackass a lot, because it's one of those... I won't even say guilty pleasures. I think it's one of those nice, simple pleasures. Of these people doing stupid things to have fun. There's no thought process involved in it. It is just watching this sort of super extreme clowning, really. Steve-O himself was a clown. That's how he started out. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got all of the movies. I think I've got all of them, because a couple of like the sequels had like a point version, so it's like a whole film's worth of alternate footage, and I'm hoping that one has one as well, because I think they clearly had a lot of stuff. Collector Adam says it's a shame to see Bam is having problems. Hope he reaches out and the Jackass guys help him out. I hope they do, because he was always one of the really sort of super fun characters of the show. And to see him go down that line is, I mean, yeah, he feels attacked. He feels kind of picked on and wronged. But I don't think that the guys are doing anything maliciously. Obviously, I'm not an insider, but yeah. You never know. Hopefully, we'll see him in the next movie. He does get a credit in this film. Soylent Green being made from people was added by the filmmakers. The book it is based on had no such plot twist. Really? That's interesting. So I like having you along, Simon. You've got... you're like an encyclopedia of this kind of stuff. You're like a British Josh Hadley. In terms of knowledge and all that kind of stuff, at the very least. Used to live with some lads who wanted to emulate the guys from Jackass. The closest they got was being pushed down Harmony Hill in Silgo in a shopping trolley. Trouble is, it isn't a steep hill, but runs into the busiest streets in the town. Oh my god. Yeah. It's one of those things. You have to have a certain amount of how can you say certain amount of ethics when you do that kind of stuff, not to involve people in the wrong way. Because they do a lot of that sort of... they do a lot of that kind of gotcha sort of stuff, the candid camera kind of stuff. And there's a few of those skits in here, and of course the old grandpa, dirty grandpa routine is very much in that kind of vein. But you can't put people in harm's way. And that's one of those things. Even Mythbusters have found out on a few occasions. One in particular, when they did the cannonball thing, and the cannonball went over the berm and through somebody's house. And they found out the hard way that you got to be so damn... I mean, they were always trying to be safe to a degree, at the very least. It's arguable on some of these things when they kind of go, we're professionals. It's like, no, you're just kind of enthused. You're paid to do this. That's about it. And they got trying to get safer and safer as they went along, but they did take some serious risks along the way. And occasionally that kind of impacted on people around. And as a producer of media, be it film, TV, whatever, you have to kind of think about that kind of stuff. Most valuable shit in the world, absolutely appreciated. Yes, it is. Simon is it's an absolute fountain of knowledge in those kind of things. Far worse than me for that. I'm kind of lucky because I do have a couple of friends, obviously Simon and Josh Hadley, who are just encyclopedias of this kind of stuff. The amount of stuff they know about obscure little films or little details or bits of trivia and all that kind of stuff is incredible. Dirty Grandpa was hilarious. Would recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. I will give it a try. It's the one thing that I've kind of been not tempted by. Mostly because it's the candid camera thing, kind of drawn out. Although I did see the trailer for the new one, and that did genuinely look funny. That's not bad. Some Brewdog, lychee and mango, Silk Road. On a bit of a Brewdog jag at the moment. Got a few more cans in the fridge. But yeah, and the other one I picked up recently, Pink Floyd, The Wall, on Blu-ray. There's no British Blu-ray, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong on that, but I ended up getting that because that was the only one I could find at the time. A hell of a film. Slightly confused in its story. It's one thing I've always found about that movie. It is the story tends to get a bit lost towards the end. It starts off almost as one thing and then kind of like morphs a bit. And I've never quite got it in my head. I've never managed to quite patch up the differences between the first half and the second half. But it is a powerful film nonetheless. And I'll be bringing that up to my brother, assuming I remember, when I pop up next month. So, which I'm really looking forward to, because he and I are going up to Alton Towers, which will be fun. So hopefully it'll be a nice quiet day. Question is, do I take my camera? It's questionable. I might take my old camera up for that, and because it's a bit. I'm not quite so afraid of busting that one. That thing's a good chunk of money more than my old computer, my old camera. But yeah. So I'll be heading up there because I'm not going to be going away now. So that's why I got the camera. Because I figured it'll be good for when I do eventually get to go away. I have been very, very tempted to see about going down to Australia. go see the relatives in Australia, which would be really nice. Awesome pickup. Glenn always loved Pink Floyd and just picked up the new remastered Pulse live gig Blu-ray. Yeah, their live shows are incredible. One of the things that a lot of people don't realise is Pink Floyd were really kind of responsible for the proliferation of moving lights in rock and roll. They pretty much commissioned a whole battery of these moving lights back in the day. And just, I mean, their light shows are incredible. As a lighting guy myself, I just look at that and just like, wow, it's quite something. The only other band that comes close, sorry, I've got a bit of hay fever, I think, today, a bit headachy, and yeah. The only other band that comes close to Pink Floyd, I think, in terms of lighting, although in a different style, would be Nine Inch Nails. Their shows are technically amazing, which is something I would love to go see at some point. But I think I'm a bit too old to be in the mosh pit. But yeah, The Wall. The story does have a tendency to sort of it kind of wanders a little bit, but it doesn't seem to matter. Because, my God, it is... that soundtrack is just powerful as hell. It's absolutely powerful as hell. And Bob Geldof is a perfect fit for it. Although, as I understand it, he didn't actually think that much of the film. I pretty much think he thought it was just art wank. But as a performer in the film, pretty much perfect. You know, what a great piece of casting. It's kind of like getting David Bowie in other films, you know what I mean? But, yeah. So I'm looking forward to showing my brother that, because he's not seen it. And yeah. So we'll have a nice evening sitting in and drinking a few beers and watching Pink Floyd The Wall. I think that would be quite something. I have been meaning to get hold of a bunch of the albums, because I don't actually own any of their albums. So definitely want to get those, and I would love to get hold of a couple of the live gigs on Blu-ray or something like that, which would be awesome. But that is for another day. Because, I mean, one of the things I am going to be getting, and I think it was Kieran mentioned it. Let me have a look. No, it's Richard. Richard posted it in the Ramblaholics. Pink Flamingos is getting a Criterion Collection release, which is incredible, and it's uncut for the first time in Britain. This is a film that it was shocking that it even got any kind of release at all, but a number of the key sequences were cut out of the movie for a release. The BBFC demanded a certain amount of cuts. I think one was the singing anus scene. Who other than with John Waters did you get to mention a singing anus scene? So that was cut. I think certain parts of the girl being attacked with the chickens was cut. I think the insemination scene was cut. And I suspect probably the dog poo at the end. Because that is gross. Why would anyone want to watch Pink Flamingos? Seriously. I think it's a fascinating piece of transgressive filmmaking. It is a film that is designed to repel and revolt. Very specifically crafted to do that. It is fascinating in some ways. I mean, I appreciate it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it is really lo-fi, grimy. It kind of adds to it to some degree. But I'll definitely be getting that. I'll definitely get that Criterion Collection version of that. One, oh, you're puckering your lips in surprise. Yes. Yeah, yeah. The BBFC have finally kind of like, because their stance on a load of the things that were cut. Obviously, the chickens, the girl being beaten with the chickens, and they were live chickens. They determined that although they're being treated roughly, they weren't being particularly abused. There is, I think, there's a chicken, if I remember. They kill a chicken in part of it, but that sort of falls in line with the whole kind of it's a quick, clean death. The animal didn't suffer. And the sex and sexual violence in the film was put in context of what the film is and what it's trying to do. So they kind of looked at that stuff and determined that it was okay by today's standards. I mean, it has to some degree lost some of its power with the kind of modern audience. Not that most modern audience members would watch the film. But yeah, fascinating is certainly one way to describe it. Disgusting for its own sake is another. It's kind of part of the point. It's supposed to be very challenging in that kind of respect. And it's not to say that it's stupendously high-minded. It's not. But it's pushing buttons, pushing boundaries, quite deliberately so. One could say that there is a certain academic interest in it. But there's also, if you're kind of into films that really sort of try to push the boundaries of acceptability, then it's a fascinating film. And John Waters' approach with the kind of casting that he has and all that kind of stuff is also interesting. And Pink Flamingos in particular really does kind of fall into a much more interesting kind of place when you understand who John Waters is and kind of the sort of background that he comes from. John says John Waters is interesting. I really rate Pecker, which doesn't get mentioned very often, and Crybaby, of course. Yes, yeah, he's a fascinating guy, and I love hearing him interviewed. He is a genuinely interesting fella, entertaining, witty, very smart, very deliberate with kind of what he does, in a way that's sort of belied by the chaotic sort of feel of some of his films. I mean, casting someone like Divine is not something that many filmmakers would have done. But he was fascinated by that community apart from anything else. He's part of that community. And he loved to work with the freakiest people he could find. And I mean that with no disrespect. It's like people who are really kind of like on the margins or even across the margins of society. So they're kind of fascinating people. I think Severin going to be releasing Franco's Faceless in a dual 4K blue pack. Really? Okay. I do have that, but it's not a great copy to the DVD release. It never really got much love, that film. Definitely going to pre-order the Criterion Collection Pink Flamingos and pick up the 101 Films Black Label Johnny Mnemonic. Johnny Mnemonic. Now that's an interesting one to watch these days, especially with it all kind of like you put it in context of kind of like Keanu Reeves' career later with the things like the Matrix and stuff like that. It's interesting how they feel like the same world to a great degree. Because there was just that fascination with all that kind of stuff at the time. There was several films. Strange Days is another one, with this whole kind of cyberpunk kind of thing going on. People with augmentations and that kind of stuff. So I think it's an interesting one as a bit of a, shall we say, zeitgeist kind of mentality about it. And it's harder, I think, nowadays to make films like that are specifically kind of seeped in that kind of culture, because it doesn't really exist in the same way now. It's always, this is the future, and like kind of like you're seeing stuff which is on your mobile phone, whatever these days. I recently got that Jess Franco film you were talking about with Mark Hamill and Christopher Lee. Yep, it's bad. It's an interesting one for Jess Franco, because it is a very straight-laced film. It's not particularly exploitative. In fact, I would say it's not really exploitative at all. It's essentially a melodrama. And the weird thing about that film, which is Night of the Eagle, the weird thing about that film really is that it's the good guys, the protagonists are all Nazis. And that's almost incidental to what's going on. Literally, you could have taken that story and you could have put it into any other kind of like collection of people. Could have done it with British soldiers, or French soldiers, or not German, or any of the Allied forces, and it probably would have been that little bit more acceptable. But because he kind of like did that with Nazis, you do get that kind of weird sort of what? Okay. There's only little bits of it that kind of play into that, though. Yeah, it's a strange film. There's some strange choices made with it. I don't quite know why he went with Nazis for it. I'm surprised you got it, Simon. I'm deeply shocked you got it, to be quite honest. But it is interesting seeing Mark Hamill in a role like that. How he fell into that, I've got no idea. I would love to ask him about it. And maybe I should ask him on Twitter. See how fast I get blocked. Oh dear. You're all saved, found a live Eurovision chat so I can nerd it up with them. It's like watching a bad TV drama. It does have that feel. I'm trying to remember if it's digital or not. I don't think it was. But it does have that kind of TV melodrama, sort of epic melodrama kind of thing. There's a lot which is really, for a Jess Franco film that most people would expect. There's actually, it's a nice piece of filmmaking. Because that's the thing, Jess Franco is not a bad filmmaker. He has made some bad films. He's made a lot of bad films, but he's not a bad filmmaker. Oh dear. Hello, Leslie. I was interested in seeing Hamill and Lee in a Franco film. Yes. So was I. That's what initially attracted me to it. Not just the fact that it was a Jess Franco film, but it's the fact that those two were in it. Of course, Christopher Lee's been in loads of Jess Franco films. He's got to have been in at least 5 or 6. It is kind of funny. It was a Eugenie, I think it was. He says, "Oh, I had no idea that there would be all these naked people around. They weren't there when I was there." And it's like, I'm like, yeah, you were clearly in shot when there was naked people knocking around. Of course, I wouldn't have said that to his face, because Christopher Lee, the more you read about him, he's a badass motherfucker. I think he was there at there's a story about him being at an execution, like a guillotine execution or something like that. And it was that bad that it shook him. Strange Days is certainly a strange one. I think it really got lost in the budget. Still very watchable, maybe once a year, just for the wonderful New Year's party at the end. Yes, Yeah, I think it is probably one of the more interesting cyberpunk kind movies. I really do. It's got a fascinating sort of story. The story is very traditional in some respects. It is kind of almost like a almost like a spy film. The theft of information goes wrong and people come after him. Well, it's not quite what that story is, but it's that kind of thing. And Ralph Fiennes in it was pretty good, as I remember. I haven't seen it in such a long time. I really, really do want to watch it again. Your favourite Hamill movie is Slipstream, great sci-fi movie and great cast. Mark Hamill has been in a lot of very wide-ranging stuff, really. He's a real kind of jobbing actor, and I respect the hell out of that. The fact that he did Night of the Eagles just shows you that he's just willing to go and put the work in. There's so many actors that are kind of like that. It's one of the things I like about Jess Franco is that he didn't turn work down very often, at the very least. So consequently, some of the films are just like gun for hire kind of stuff that he clearly did not give a shit about, but often there's little bits in even the worst films that you sort of look at and you go, yeah, that's actually a little spark of genius in there. And I don't think there's any of the Jess Franco films I've seen that I could call unwatchable. There's some which come close. But then you get some of the bad films like Bloody Moon, which is just a pure joy to watch. I love that film. It's so... I think he was quite clear with himself that film wasn't exactly going to be a masterpiece, but he just seemed to be having such fun doing it, as did most of the actors. And some just beautiful shots and cinematography in there. But then you get the things like the big kind of polystyrene boulder that sort of comes down. It's clearly sort of polystyrene. Yeah, Christopher Lee attended the last public execution in France, as I recall. I think that was the one. Yeah, there was something about it in it's one of Simon Whistler's channels. I don't think it was. It wasn't the Today. I found out it was one of them that he goes on about looks at the final execution, which was in the mid-70s in France, the final guillotine execution. But yeah, I know you don't like him, Simon, but yeah. It's not like you're in the minority there. I'm in the minority there. Didn't Hamill have a role in a Flash TV show from the 90s? I have no idea, actually. Downtown Heat has just been put out on Tubi. It was okay. What do you think of Jean Roland's films? It's asking Dark Angel, but I think he's pretty much the same as Jess Franco in a lot of respects. Some good films, a lot of bad films. And that's the thing, that was part of the culture of the whole kind of filmmaking industry in Europe. You had companies like Eurocine and things like that were kind of knocking films out 19 to the dozen. I mean, they're kind of like a latter-day sort of asylum in some respects, but at least with occasional artistic drives. I mean, it really is, as Eurocine sort of went on, their films tended to get worse. But the likes of Jean Roland and D'Amato and Franco and all those guys, they were kind of just going out there and making films. It was a living. And sometimes they were good, often they were bad. But occasionally you would get, D'Amato would get some good films out once in a while. So would Franco. But everybody gets kind of hooked up on the really shitty ones. which, like I say, some are fun. Some are very much fun bad, and some of them are kind of rather boring. I mean, you've got like films like Franco's Virgin Among the Living Dead, which is actually a really interesting film. It's easy to sort of write it off because it looks a bit rough and ready, but it's a damn good film, actually. Fascinating piece of storytelling and the way he tells that story. You only like Franco's horror films and Justine. Fair enough. I would say, my favourite of his overall was Venus and Furs. A whole bunch of his horror films I liked, even the bad ones. Thought Night of the Haunted had a Cronenberg feel. Bloody Moon is bloody great. Well, like I say, Simon says, not really a fan of Roland Nova. Yeah, I mean, they've generally got kind of a similar vibe going on. Although Franco had a tendency to be a little bit more cartoony with some of his films, especially the sort of bawdy sex films that he made. Virgin Among the Living Dead is a fascinating film. It is, and I mean, I love the whole kind of... Because that's really a good example of Franco's... what they sort of describe it as psychosexual films, which I think is a little bit of a wordy way of putting it, but yeah, it's kind of like that. Sort of psychological take. It's kind of a dream world that he's presenting, which is quite fascinating to me. Some of my favourite films are in that kind of area, stuff like Possession. Franco and D'Amato remind me of Samuel Beckett and Eugene Ionesco, both prolific in their own right, but the subject matter didn't appeal to a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Franco and D'Amato made films all over the kind of map. It's whatever happened to be kind of in demand at the time. So Franco did a lot of his horror films, and his earlier stuff particularly was very much based on the old kind of Hammer sort of feel and that kind of stuff. Very kind of gothic horror type stuff, but with his own sort of kind of flavour brought in. And his first feature-length film, which was We Are 18 Years Old, it's a strange film because it plays out like a kind of very cheesy comedy for the most part, but it has aspects to it which were really quite dark as well. It kind of goes places. So it's this interesting kind of texture to this film. And I highly recommend, if you get a chance, watch it. I believe it's on YouTube somewhere. I think we did. Did we do a watch along of it at one point? It's a real lo-fi copy. I mean, I would love to have a reasonably kind of restored copy of that, because I think it's kind of an interesting Franco, especially with it being his first. And yeah. Mark Hamill has done tons of voiceover work for various cartoons, in particular Joker and Batman cartoons. Also voiced Chucky in Child's Play remake a few years back. I wasn't aware of the Child's Play thing, but yeah, he's made a good career out of voice work. Also, along what We Are 18 Years Old, the Jess Franco film. I'm pretty sure I did that some time ago. That was one of the interesting ones to get hold of, I think, for when I did the Franco file on it. And it's this really lo-fi kind of low-res, blocky as fuck YouTube, early YouTube kind of looking thing. And it's the only way I could get to watch it. So I can, you suck it up and watch this thing. Watched Driving Massacre last night by Buck Flower, apparently shot in 4 days, you can tell, but it's a good low-budget slasher effort. Sometimes I like to see films, for all warts and all, when they're faced with challenges like that. I've always held that films that face challenges that aren't solved or aren't solvable by just chucking money at it tend to end up being much more interesting than your average Hollywood fare that they sort of go, just throw money at it, make the problem go away. But yeah, we did Venus and Furs, Bloody Moon, and another Franco, but I can't remember which. I'm pretty sure we've done that one, but if we haven't, maybe we should do it at some point if we can find a YouTube version of it. I lose track. We've done so many of those damn things now. Oh, by the way, what I will say is, I'm not going to be able to do another one of these for the next 2 weeks. The third week, we'll do a film watch along, something like that. So yeah, we'll do another watch along on the next episode. But next week and the week after, it's just absolute bloody bedlam at work. I ain't going to be in any fit condition to sit here and watch, because all that happens is you're watching a film and you just see me sort of slip down beneath the desk, unconscious. Norwegians are dressed up as minions singing "Give That Ghost a Banana." Wow. I'm wondering what the Finnish are doing. They're kind of like, fuck off Russia. We Are 18 Years Old is on YouTube with English subs. Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm wondering if it's the same version. Because I don't think anybody's probably got a better version of it. It's right back in 1959, this one. Yeah, it's the version I saw. But it's actually, maybe it's a bit washed out and stuff, but it's actually not a bad version. Probably have to watch that at some point. Only thing I've got to get into Driving Massacre is that you don't find out who the killer is. You see, I don't mind that necessarily if it's done right. If it's not just done as a cock tease. Which one was it? There's been a few films where you don't find out who the killer is, and the audience kind of don't always sort of enjoy that. I don't mind if it's done right, if it's an effective end to the film. Message you the link. Yes, thank you, Kerry. I did actually just find it. Don't think I'll have got a copyright strike from that one. Doesn't look that bad, 360p. Yeah, I'm wondering if somebody's scaled it up a little bit. It looks, yeah. It's not too bad. It's really weird. It looks like a, oh motherfucker. But downloading watch longs we've done now, so many now. It's been awesome. Glad along. May it continue. I don't know. God, done well over 100. Yeah. So yeah, well, maybe we'll do a Jess Franco night again at some point. I think when Simon's probably off doing karaoke or something like that, so we don't offend his sensibilities. Actually, it's kind of remarkable. As a lot of Jess Franco's films have just been coming out on DVD and Blu-ray lately. There seems to be a resurgence for some reason. I shan't say that I was responsible for that, but maybe I was a small part of that. It is kind of interesting to see that stuff wending its way out. So I've got a couple which I've got to sit down and watch. I did start watching Cecilia, and I didn't get all the way through it. That is one of those that I kind of I abandoned ship a little bit. I don't think I was in the mood, and sometimes that era of Jess Franco is one of those things you have to be in the mood to sit down and watch those films. But Sadist Baron von Klaus is another one which I've got to watch up there. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see those things coming out. I remember complaining that I'd missed the Mausoleum watch along. Yeah, that was the one I had Newt on. That was a lot of fun to do. I like Newt. He's a good lad. I got the Golden Temple Amazons and Diamonds of Kilimanjaro double set recently. Maybe the worst Franco movies I've ever seen. You are not the worst, but they're definitely in the kind of mediocre Franco. Not going to lie, I'm not a huge Uncle Jess fan, but I do like Bloody Moon and Venus and Furs. No, it's not for everybody, and there's plenty of his films that I don't enjoy. But the guy made like 200 odd films in his career. When he stopped being able to sort of get around so well, they switched over to digital because he could just hold a camera in his hand. It was easy to handle. Which is part of the reason why he switched to digital. Just partly budgetary concerns in the later career. But the Killer Barbies film was quite good fun. That was one of his digital ones. And there's a few which were released after, which are very hard to get hold of. It's one of the frustrating things when it comes to Jess Franco's filmography is it's not possible to complete the lot. So many of them are missing. A whole bunch of them, when you look at the filmography, were incomplete as well, or kind of abandoned before they even got started. But the classic one that I say, which was a completed film, but I don't think it ever saw a release, was AIDS: A 20th Century Plague. And I'd be fascinated to see Jess Franco's take on that. It might just break me. Are Blue Underground looking at some Franco 4Ks? I'd have no idea. I've no idea. The thing is, a lot of the films could be given that treatment, because particularly when he was in the Harry Alan Towers era, and certainly for a good chunk of the Eurocine period of his career, the film equipment that he was using was actually quite good quality. You can't honestly say that a lot of his films look rough, not during that period. They just, there's things that are rough about the film in terms of the production, but the film quality, film stock and stuff like that, it certainly wasn't it. And the Harry Alan Towers sort of stuff was really kind of like that, really beautiful kind of cinematography. I don't know what cameras they were using in between the two periods, but you look at something like Venus and Furs, it's incredibly cinematic, as is a lot of the stuff, Eugenie and all those kind of films. The Harry Alan Towers era is probably my favourite era of Jess Franco, just because it just looks absolutely friggin' stunning. Eurocine just produced some real kind of comedy gems, and a whole bunch of kind of Lena Romay running around naked, which is always a bonus. But 99 Women, as for instance, is a really nice looking film, a very well made film, except for the Bruno Mattei hardcore. I can say hardcore inserts, but that's probably the wrong way to put it. Mausoleum Watch Along was awesome. So I can't recall the name of the film, but the watch along you had the director is the director and the writer. So the director was on the phone, but it was Straw Wiseman who was the writer of the film. That was something that Newt put together, and that was just after the watch along that we did together, I think, if I remember rightly. I can't remember which way we did it around, but Newt knows Straw and put him on to me. Straw has sort of said, look, do you want to do another one of my movies? And I'm absolutely up for that, so I might approach him about that. I've got to find out which films it is and see if I can get hold of them first, though. But I might ask him, what film would he like to do? Because that could be kind of fun. I don't generally like doing stuff with guests, but doing that thing with Straw was a lot of fun. Working with Newt was a lot of fun. It was good doing the one with Kerry as well. I tend to have to be very comfortable with the people that I kind of do these things with, because it's a lot of work on my behalf to do it. Funny enough, it doesn't sound like there should be, but there is. There's a lot going on when you've got guests involved, because it's having to get Skype all set up and plumbed into OBS and getting all that kind of stuff sort of right, and hope to God that connection holds up, and trying to get the synchronization right between the two of us and that kind of stuff. It's complicated. Plus, I usually have to end up wearing 2 sets of headphones because I can't plumb in Skype into OBS without the desktop sound. So if the movie's playing on my desktop, then that's potentially a problem. So, however, I might be able to find another way of doing that, because I've got the PS3, so potentially if I've got it DVD or Blu-ray, I could play it in that and play it through my video capture card and get the audio plumbed straight into OBS, bypassing the desktop. Maybe. Technicalities. It's amazing how many ways you can wire these things up, and I've done quite complicated things in the past. It's just, it's a little tricky. Of course, Simon's been on the show as well on a couple of occasions, and that's always been fun. Simon and I disagree about so much in the way of films and stuff, but I find it entertaining. I enjoy it. Never forgotten Franco for the forgiven Franco for the Fu Manchu movies. You know what? Maybe they did let the characters down a bit, but still entertaining. I still find them entertaining. It's that kind of like puffed up Bond villain kind of thing going on. And talk about movies that you couldn't make these days. I'm trying to remember if the Grindhouse, the Tarantino Grindhouse thing did the Fu Manchu with Nicolas Cage, didn't it? Grobnob. Hi, hello everybody. I'm under a tree in a field. Of course you are. I hope you're having a good time. Apologies, Gary. Should have said the watch along co-hosted by yourself was awesome too. The thing is, I don't mind doing the co-hosting things. Like I say, I tend to have to be in a position where I kind of trust the person. I'd be interested if Jeff Lieberman would like to do one on Blue Sunshine or something like that. So that'd be kind of fascinating. He was very impressed with my review of Blue Sunshine. So it would be kind of interesting to see if he would actually want to do that and arrange something like that. That'd be kind of fun. But definitely got to get Straw back on at some point. I think that would be worthwhile. Just need to find the movie. I think Fu Manchu character in Werewolf Women. Yeah. I think that's the one. Master villain in a spy series played by Christopher Lee in the movie cycle. So pray tell, Grobnob, what are you doing under a tree in a field? I was more or less doing that this morning. Well, around lunchtime. But I had a camera out, so. As with Manchester Morgue, co-hosted by Simon. Yeah. Yes, that was a good one. And a great film, and it's always good to have someone like Simon around for a film like that, because Manchester Morgue is one of those, I think, hugely underrated films. I think it's a fascinating film, interestingly made, and like I say in both the review and during the watch along, it's fascinating how good a feel for the countryside and the people that the director had. You're smoking a ciggy while walking, dog. I hope the dog's well, and I hope you're well as well, of course. You have the Fu Manchu box set. It's rather good. I do have the... I have a free movie pack. Let's see if I can find it. Oh no, it's just a 2-pack. Hang on. Come here, you little bugger. Oh, I tell you what, I need more shelves. Desperately need more shelves. Come on, you little sod. There we go. So that's the one I've got, which is just the Jess Franco ones. Yeah. I found them entertaining. I mean, it's kind of like a ever so slightly more straight-faced version of Austin Powers, really. But I remember watching these films, as growing up. There'd occasionally be the Fu Manchu films on. There were 5 in total. Yes. I'll have seen probably a couple of the others. I don't know if I've seen them all, but it was like when I was kind of knee-high to a grasshopper, it's a very, very long time ago. I seem to remember them being on Forces television or something at some point. So I was probably watching it in Hong Kong or Cyprus or something. But yeah, it's fascinating to see, how many of these films have been coming out. I did get. I haven't even unwrapped it yet, but I got the Demons on Blu-ray. It was at a reasonable price, so. And I can't remember if I had it on DVD as well. I have been promising to do like a kind of run through with like the Jess Franco films and stuff, with the ones I've got on DVD and stuff. That is something I should do at some point. Could take a while. There's a whole fuck ton of them up there. Probably a lot less than I kind of suspect, actually, but I probably got far more than most people have. Though I wouldn't be surprised if Simon didn't have more than me. Are you looking forward to watching The Batman and Morbius? Morbius, no. Got no interest in that whatsoever. The Batman, yes. Yeah, I will. I'll get it on Blu-ray when it comes out. Be interested to see that. It's kind of funny watching a lot of the Snyder fans kind of go, "Return of Snyderverse," and it's like, kind of, oh, for fuck's sake, it's like, do you want DC to survive as a business at all? I wouldn't have a problem with Snyder continuing to make those kind of films. Just don't throw so much money at it. If they want to have that, if there's the demand's got to reach the budget, well, the budget's got to kind of be in balance with the demand, and there just isn't the demand. It's gone down and down. As far as I can tell. So those films are really going to sort of struggle. And people sort of point out the Snyder Cut as being much more successful, yada, yada, yada. But you got to remember that, of course, most of the film was already made. He just inserted a bunch of stuff. The Batman was actually okay. Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews of it. Some people who really just hated it, and some people who really loved it. I suspect I'll probably be more towards the latter. Whether I'll absolutely love it, I don't know. But from what I've seen of it, it's more my kind of film style. Wasn't Christopher Lee Fu Manchu as well? Yes, he was. You can see how There he is. Christopher Lee's just endlessly fascinating bloke. Watched Morbius this morning, didn't do much for me. I think I am looking forward to seeing the new Doctor Strange film. I'm not going to the cinema. I don't go to the cinema anymore. I don't enjoy the experience anymore. But when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll pick it up. As for the rest of the MCU, there's just very little that's actually kind of piqued my interest. So much of it just seems a bit kind of, well, it feels increasingly like everything's having to be sort of filtered through the lens of the television series, that the multiple television series that are going on. The two couples from Prince of Darkness and Same Castle too. Okay, quite like the Batman, far from faultless but still very enjoyable. I don't need a film to be perfect, but I just need it to be kind of like trying something interesting. And that's always been the hardest. Actually, there's two things that have always put me off with the Snyder films. The stories aren't that interesting. It is literally about, just getting to the action scenes and that's it. That's all it's interested in. At least that's how it feels to me. And the characters, I don't think I've enjoyed a single character in the Snyderverse. Good or bad. And that's a big problem for me. You're welcome to disagree. We all have kind of different criteria for that kind of stuff. But for me, I just didn't find the characters interesting in the slightest, and the drive for kind of getting it going. I found it boring. It's very self-indulgent as well. Recently watched the Joker cutscene from the Batman. Yes. Yeah, and that kind of intrigues me because it's a completely new type of Joker as well, from what I can tell. And I'm happy for that. Christopher Lee was in a peplum. Okay. Hercules in Haunted World, I think. Not bad. It was directed by Bava. Oh, interesting. I didn't realise he worked with Bava. Raimi is the draw for the new Doctor Strange for me. He has been for a few people, but I kind of... Doctor Strange, the first one, wasn't the best loved of the Marvel films. It felt like a bit of an odd fish in the MCU. But I kind of enjoyed it. I mean, I was initially a little bit sort of turned off by the whole kind of special effects things, because looking at it, I was going, they're just ripping off Inception. What's going on? But when I saw the film, I actually kind of really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the pacing, which was kind of slower than most of the others. I like a film that, not ponderous, but a film that really kind of takes a little bit more time to do stuff. And I thought there was aspects of that story that were quite interesting. Not least that, because Sam Raimi's sort of been mooting a whole bunch of Doctor Strange into the multiverse, whatever it is, Multiverse of Madness, as being a horror, and the first one had kind of aspects of that. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting character, and Benedict Cumberbatch is just perfect for the role. And I've not always been the biggest Benedict Cumberbatch fan, but I have warmed to him over the years. Lifelong Marvel fan here, but this phase of MCU has been a letdown for the most part. To a degree, yeah. I think they've lost a lot of momentum. Go to the cinema during the day. You can always get the theatre to yourself. I'm still not that interested in going. I'd rather watch it in the comfort of my home. I don't honestly. A lot of people sort of talk about, it's the big screen experience and all that kind of stuff, and it's always felt a bit overrated. There's only a few films that I've actually kind of felt have benefited from that. So yeah, I'm a little bit, and that's almost sacrilegious for for somebody in my position to be saying that kind of stuff. David Lynch would be kind of like probably slapping me with a ruler at this point, but there you go. Snyder does an awful long movie, as does self-indulgent, but I did like Jeremy Irons as Alfred. Yeah, he was kind of cool. Jeremy Irons is a very charismatic actor. Toyed of going to see The Batman, never did. Bit of a wasted opportunity. It'll be out on Blu-ray soon. I think it's out next month, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I can go to cinema during the day, avoiding weekends at most. There's half a dozen people there. Yeah. I've just never... I've slowly lost the drive to go, and the rewards for going have been kind of going down and down. It's a very expensive thing to do these days. When you look at the price of a cinema ticket these days, you could buy a Blu-ray for that. You know, the studios would love it if it could get rid of the physical media kind of end of things, because then, if you think that kind of like, you know, you're going to have a subscription, and each fucking studio will have their own kind of subscription box, so you won't be able to go in and just buy one movie. You'll have to subscribe to see the films, which means you'll be paying, 10-15 quid a month or whatever, and most of the time not actually using it. Did you like the last Spider-Man film? Yes, I did see it. I quite enjoyed it. Although it's weird. Spider-Man looks very much part of the MCU, but the whole new series really, most of the versions, it's been owned by Sony for God knows how many years now. It looks like a Sony film. It's weird. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's something about the color palette that Sony use and the contrast kind of qualities of the films that seems common across most of Sony's filmography. So I can't get away from the feeling that I'm watching a Sony film. And some people will say, well, what's the problem with that? Generally speaking, I think Sony are not very good filmmakers as a studio. The vast majority of their output has been meh at best. There's been occasional good ones, but for the most part, not that interesting. And a certain amount of that has leached into the Spider-Man series of films. However, I can just about put it aside because the films are kind of fun. And actually, I kind of like the lad that's playing Spider-Man, Tom Holland. I think he's actually pretty much got it down just right. And he seems like a pretty decent lad as well. I haven't heard anything really bad about him at this point, which can't necessarily be said about Tobey Maguire. Something like 2001 would be great to see on the big screen. Yeah, there are occasional things. I think the only cinemas that really kind of interest me, when I say I'm not interested in going to cinemas, I think like the kind of art house cinema type setup was a more traditional cinema setup rather than. I think it's the multiplex experience is just as much as anything to be part of the problem for me. I detest multiplexes now. I absolutely loathe them. It's sort of throw you in and throw you out kind of stuff. And charge you 15 quid for a pot of bloody popcorn, which I understand why, and I don't blame them specifically. But no intervals anymore, so you can't have an intermission, nip out for a piss and grab some more food and drink or whatever. All those kind of things. No ushers. It's a real problem. Alex Cox is an indie hero of mine, great director. Even his critical failures are really interesting, better than most. Yeah, he is. He's kind of an interesting director. I I can't remember, was it Movie Drome or something like that he did back in... Yeah, it was a TV series that he hosted years ago. Just trying to catch up. I missed a whole bunch of these things because I've been rapiding on. But that's kind of my job here, isn't it, really? Wasn't a fan of the new Spider-Man movie. His character is so damn irresponsible. That's kind of that character. I think the weirdest thing about the latest one is that Doctor Strange is very irresponsible in this. I mean, he has a certain aspect of that, but it seemed very played up. I think that's probably one of the weakest aspects of the film. Saying that Tom Holland is a good actor and he's done well with the character. Yeah. I think it's because, apart from anything else, he's a genuinely likeable lad, from what I can tell. But yeah, I didn't notice. Did have the same humour feels the character should have. Then adding on Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire just made me feel underwhelmed. It was a bit member berry, but yeah, I actually thought it was done reasonably well. Wasn't a fan of News. Yeah, we've done that one. Saying that Tom Holland. Yeah, I've done that one. I'm bouncing around the bloody comments, aren't I? I do apologise. Three Spider-Men in the last film, yes. Yeah, they're really playing on that multiverse thing, aren't they? I mean, it's kind of like, it's fed into the Doctor Strange thing. Which I am genuinely kind of looking forward to watching. It seems to be saying, hey, look, we're way better than those older Spider-Man movies. The arrogance on display was astounding. I didn't get that from the movie. I thought it was actually kind of probably more respectful than it needed to be towards a lot of those things. It could have been really cheesy and stuff towards them, but yeah. I mean, you can kind of look at certain things like Andrew Garfield's kind of talking about losing, was it MJ? His MJ was kind of a bit oddly pitched to some extent, but it kind of made sense within the movie, so I couldn't really argue about it too much. It was Movie Drone before Mark. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I've got Movie Drone to thank for a lot of my first views of stuff. That was really hard to find back in the day. Great show. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them that were pretty interesting. Mystery Train, hosted by Richard O'Brien. Had a Kolchak the Night Stalker, always had an episode of that, and it was a film. If I remember rightly, they also played an episode of Mystery Science Theatre 3000 as the closing gambit. Film Uncharted, which Tom Holland starred in, was actually quite fun. Kind of like Tomb Raider, but more campy, utterly ridiculous, and very entertaining. Oh, okay. Dear, oh dear. It is nice to do these chats once in a while, isn't it? I don't have to worry about syncing everybody up and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully this weekend I will be continuing, because I have actually made a proper start on the review. I do promise it is on its way. So I'm going to get the rest of it recorded that I've written and try and get it edited over the next couple of days. So technically I've got Monday off, so try and get that sorted before the week gets really crazy. It's probably not going to get finished this weekend because I've still got a fuck ton of writing to do on it. It is going to be quite a big episode, but yeah, I've really got to get my arse back in gear with that stuff. It's been quite hard because work's been kind of all consuming, which is not much fun. I mean, I don't hate my job or nothing, but there's a review. Someone says, I will be returning to review vids once I've finished the current slew of DIY projects. Yes, there is a review. There is of Zardoz, which is underway. It's about 4 pages long at the moment. I've probably got about another 3 pages minimum to do of writing. But I'm hoping to get what I've done recorded in at least most of the way edited this weekend. Movie drama Friday night horror and double bills pretty much made me the person I am, for better or worse. It's funny, isn't it? Horror film fans tend to be kind of genuinely nice people. The ones that everybody, the government and people are suspicious of. But in my experience, horror film fans tend to be some of the nicest people. Good evening, Minty. It's been ages since I could attend. It's good to hear. Dear, oh dear. There's one thing I do miss from the TV, although I don't think it's anything like it anymore, is things like Movie Drone and stuff like that. I loved it when they did the series on, a couple of series on censorships, like mini-series of reviews, criticism and films, like Forbidden, which was a particularly interesting one. A whole bunch of really cool stuff in that. Can I find it? Let me just see if I can find the thing. Oh, you're there, you little bugger. I've got it's between one of those books. It'll take me forever to find the damn thing, so I shan't put you through that. But yeah, actually, while I was there, as the Marvel fanboy who hates all DC, Arkham Asylum. I believe it's his first edition as well. Just a stunning piece of art. Absolutely beautiful. That also fell out. I've shown that to you before. It's astoundingly rare these days, this book. This is worth a chunk of money, this one. You kind of like look at it, you go, it's a slightly yellowing paged ex-library book. But you get a pretty penny for that these days. And these came down as well, so I've got a few of the old reprints of the Vault of Horror and Tales of the Crypt and stuff, which I think I dug out of storage for a kind of thing I was doing on YouTube. Horror filmmakers tend to be the most humble, even that Fred Vogel guy. You'd be surprised, actually. I mean, I did do. I think it was for Murder Set Pieces, and the director's I'm glad you got to see the uncut version anyway. And I was not kind of very pleasant on that review, really. But to the point that I actually put an apology at the end. I was kind of making it absolutely clear that I wasn't trying to impugn the character of the director. I says, look, it might have sounded like that to some degree, and the only reason I didn't just rewrite the entire review is because it felt right as part of the review, but then I kind of felt very kind of guilty at the end of it, and it was like, I don't know this guy, so I didn't want to kind of make that kind of judgment about him as his personality. So I kind of took a step back, and I wrote this thing, this coda to the review, just to make it clear that I wasn't calling the guy an actual Nazi. We had a show called The End in the 90s. They showed classic sitcoms on Friday and classic classic / cult horror on the Saturday. Oh, that's kind of cool. The guy did special effects, worked on Terminator 2. Late night Hammer horror was a staple for John growing up. Yeah. Didn't get Hammer horror, but the one thing, it's a story I've kind of like mentioned before in a few places, but I don't think on here. My introduction to kind of like the video nasties and stuff was really my sister's boyfriend of the time bringing around a couple of video nasties. I didn't know there were video nasties at the time. Didn't really have any kind of like much knowledge of it. Not in terms of like, what's the list, what are the problematic films and all that kind of stuff. I was aware of the video nasties at the time as an event, if you know what I mean. As a political happening. But he brought round Cannibal Apocalypse and I Spit on Your Grave. So we had a double bill of that, and it was like about 13 at the time, I think, if I remember right. Yeah. Where are we? Okay. EC Comics rocked. They're kind of fun and really kind of twisted. I mean, they look kind of quaint these days, but back in the day, that was that's some pretty transgressive stuff. Some people said like go, shock for shock value, and like we were talking about with Pink Flamingos and stuff. But there's a value to that, to some degree, if you've got a point. It's like I say, I don't think Pink Flamingos is entirely shock for shock value. I think that is kind of its method, but there's something else going on there with that film. Murder Set Pieces, got to pick it up. Super rare to find a copy. I got 2 copies. Where are you little bugger? We're up there somewhere. Yeah, I've got... Basically, I went out and I bought the... I had to obviously import it because it's still banned in this country. It was banned on release in this country. And I ended up getting the cut version somehow. And I just kind of watched this thing and it's like really quite butchered. And then Juliet, who's kind of like on my Facebook, she kind of went, I've got the uncut version and I'm not going to watch it again anyway because I don't like it. Do you want it? I went, yeah. So she posted me. Yeah. So I've got 2 copies of the damn thing. I haven't watched it for a very long time though. Really wanted to do a review of a Polanski film. A little worried about upsetting anyone. Any thoughts on if it? Why wouldn't you do it? Oh, I suppose it will be because of just do what they do with like Birth of a Nation and put a kind of thing going there. I'm not talking about the director in terms of the current controversies and stuff, but this is talking about the movie. That kind of thing, you know what I mean. You have the entire TV series of Tales from the Crypt on DVD. I've seen little bits and pieces of it. I just never quite got into that. And I kind of have this thing, it's weird. Very few TV series that I really kind of be asked to sit through. Even the ones I really, really like. I mean, I'd loved Breaking Bad back, when I was very late to the party on that one. But I've got them all on Blu-ray. And I don't know if I'm ever going to watch them again because it's just like such a bloody time commitment to sit through the whole lot. Personally, wait until Polanski kicks the bucket before watching stuff. The people who defend what he did, to say the least, puzzling. Yeah. He did kind of fuck up, didn't he? Just switch to another machine. Should be fine now. Okay. Murder Set Pieces, is that the one with Tony Todd? No, it's not. No, it's kind of like oh, Jesus. What's the best way to describe it? I don't even know if I'd really call it that extreme in most respects. I can't remember if it had some sort of ties to August Underground. But some of the stuff that goes on in it really did kind of threw up the flags for the censors, to say the least. Yeah. Sorry, just checking the level so I don't end up burning the wick. Yeah. EC comics are invaluable and worth tracking down collections. Yeah. I don't even mind having like kind of like the reproduction ones because they're quite nice. I mean, they have absolutely have the look and feel, and just the kind of print quality and stuff. Just looks and feels like a good old fashioned comic book. Sort of how it felt back in the day when I was reading comics as a kid, which I didn't do an awful lot of, but yeah. Yeah, I'd like to get some more of them. May have to look into it. Find that comics are the medium between novels and films. They're very unique in their storytelling style, aren't they? And there's the diversity of different styles and stuff. You've got stuff like, this kind of graphics. You know, and for a comic book, there's a lot of reading in EC Comics. It's not light on text. You compare that to something like, Marvel and DC. They're very, very light, generally speaking, when it comes to dialogue. But but then you get things like that. I mean, what a beautiful piece of art. There's just some fantastic work in this. No, but what would I know? I'm an MCU fan. I have no respect for DC. I just need things bright and colourful. I mean, it's colourful, but it's dark as fuck as well. That is a dark, dark book. Do you mean the Minty? Do you mean the EC, or do you mean the Arkham Asylum? Watched that shit the other day with a bonkers cameo from Tony Todd. Fantastic actor. He's a very charismatic actor. I don't know. The only thing I'd say with him is I don't know about his range. But it doesn't seem to matter. He's kind of like, it's kind of like with the Sean Connerys of the world, they can get away with being that more or less the same kind of level. But he's always entertaining to watch. It's really intimidating in like kind of Candyman and stuff. Read many comics over the years and still a 2000 AD fan. Yeah. I think Josh Hadley was always kind of a little bit jealous, because 2000 AD was one of the comic books I used to read as a kid. Only occasionally, because, like I've said before, I couldn't really afford much in the way of comic books. Certainly not in terms of, Marvel and DC. They were a lot harder to get hold of over here because they all have to be imported. But 2000 AD was one of the comic books I would read, and The Eagle as well. I was like literally that far from actually having the entire run of the kind of release of The Eagle comic. I had so many of them right from the beginning. Then I stopped because, I kind of got to that age where I just wasn't that interested at the time. But I'd wish I'd got the whole lot, because I think that would be quite an interesting thing to have as a collection. Anyone seen Candyman reboot? No, I haven't, but I do kind of wonder, what's the point? But I don't know. Maybe they're telling something new. The Eagle, fantastic 50s sci-fi, well worth having. Of course, the new series of it, the newer series, which started in the 80s, was kind of interesting because it was part artwork and then some amount of it was like kind of like photo stuff as well. So it was this really kind of fascinating character which called Doom Lord. This guy that would kind of like, get people by the head and suck their brains out, basically. It's dog shit in that. It looks a little cheesy because it's like photo story stuff, but he could morph his head into different people by basically absorbing their thoughts and stuff like that. So these people would sort of like go like that, and their eyes would roll back and stuff like that. The more I think about it, the more fucked up I think it was. There was a whole bunch of stuff like that, Of course, 2000 AD was interesting. A lot more adult than I think I probably was able to appreciate at the time. Certainly a lot going on in that story. I mean, there's a lot of politics involved with something like Judge Dredd and some of the other stories that are in there. So there were stories with real kind of like nuance and things that it was talking about. I'm going to just replace my beer. I'm back. Tell you what, it's getting bloody warm in here. To be honest, I wasn't expecting a lot from the Candyman reboot. I think you could make a really interesting, well-made and worthwhile remake of something like Candyman. I think that is entirely possible. It's just so many of the people that do these remakes just don't give that much of a shit. They're just kind of playing off the name and kind of being lazy by not having to come up with their own stories. Very adult it was in 2000 AD. You got an education, yes you did. Yeah. And you look at something like Judge Dredd and what kind of like it's really about. Who these people are, who the judges are. And you've got this kind of very ambiguous grey characters. They're not good, they're not bad. Well, they are bad, they're all sorts of things. The judges, the whole kind of idea of what the judges are is such a fascist kind of thing. He's literally, I am the law. It's like, you can't argue with the judges. And that in itself creates problems. And it's an interesting thing to think about, in terms of kind of how that relates to the real world. What is it talking about? That's fascinating. Clive Barker would have to be involved with it. That's why all the Hellraiser sequels are bad after Part 3. I don't even think Part 3 is particularly good. I think it's a very weak entry in some respects, but it's watchable just because it just manages to continue the story. Part 2 is clearly inferior to the first one, and it's basically because they ran out of money and had to rush the end. I think I said it in the review that I did of it, that it feels like a Hellraiser film up until about the last 20 minutes. Second, that Dr. Cunard gets transformed and he turns into this pun machine, and it's like, where did that come from? Yeah, I think Hellraiser 2 is ruined by the ending, unfortunately. Hope you don't mind me sharing the Creepshow box set pre-order release on Ramblaholic's page. Yeah, I saw that. It looks kind of cool. No, you're always welcome to kind of put those kind of things out there because anyone in the Ramblaholics is tend to be collectors of physical media apart from anything else, and will have an interest in those kind of things. It's absolutely fine. Chenard, yes, thank you. I've got the so I've got that Arrow box set of Hellraiser Blu-rays. It's just Blu-rays. It's not, just the Blu-rays. So 1, 2, and 3 in there. I'd have to watch 4 again at some point, I think. It's some of the other later Hellraiser films. They're clearly kind of just rebadged. They're clearly rebadged films. They're completely, utterly not related. The stories are not really supposed to be Hellraiser films. But they just sort of crowbarred Pinhead in there just to get that synergy going. Read all of Rogue Trooper and most of AB Warriors. Oh, interesting. Okay. Right. Don't know. There might just been a little bit of a dropout then. The Doctor from Hellraiser 2 was obsessed with the boxes. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's a fascinating story up until about the last kind of act, really. And it was kind of rush it, get it finished, and then he put all that kind of ill-advised humour in there, and it was a bit okay. And I thought that ruined the film. The first one is still a classic and is incredibly watchable. The third one feels like an American film, whereas the first two, at least, do feel like, British films. Although the second one was an American film, it still kind of felt... it retained a certain amount of that kind of feel of the first film, which is unmistakably a British film. The third one, not so much. A part in Hellraiser 2 where he cuts himself with a razor is nasty. Yes, that is. And that felt very much like the like a Hellraiser film, didn't it? It's like I say, it's that last act. It's only the last act that really lets that film down. It's a real shame as well. If it had a bit more time and a bit more money, I think that film could have been, twice as good as it is. Don't get me wrong though, I can very happily sit down and watch it. I don't hate the film. But it's one of those you sort of go, it's just a shame that the full potential of it wasn't actually held up. 7 for Hellraiser is insanely difficult to get hold of. It isn't in most box sets. Most have 4, 5, 6, and then you skip 7 and go straight through to 8. So which one is Hellraiser 7 then? To be honest, I lost track of them after about 4, I guess. Particularly because they don't go kind of Hellraiser 5, 6, 7. It's kind of Hellraiser whatever. Deader. What a shit name. Oh my god, it's such a shit name. You can get my HMV on DVD for $5.99. Seems to be all around. It's cheap. I don't think there's any Blu-ray releases of it or anything like that. I don't think anybody's shown it that much love. Hello, Grobnob. Not bothered with 4K DVD. Blu-ray is good enough for me. Yeah. Yeah, WH Smiths do it, HMV do it, Amazon's got it for $5. So you can fill your hole. Own a page of Glenn Fabrislane's Talbot's note. Have a page and a cover, a colour cover. Okay. It's super bloody. I'm surprised it was even in theatres. Okay. Scott Derrickson started his career with a Hellraiser sequel. Remember it all right, but not great. But not great and very low budget. Most of them were. And the thing is, a lot of these stories have just been kind of, the later sequels, certainly from like 5 onwards, I guess. It was kind of like the Twilight Zone, sort of connected, a whole bunch of very disparate stories connected by one tiny little thing that would be like the narrator. And that's kind of how the later Hellraiser sequels sort of worked, really. There were stories that were kind of dusted off, submissions that weren't really of any interest to anyone, that wouldn't make any money because nobody really cared to see that kind of thing. So they kind of went stick pin ended it, call it Hellraiser in the title, and then people will watch it. It's got to have run its course. I can't imagine that it would get any further. I'm going to look at this one actually. Yeah, I see what you mean. I've just had a look at this. Somebody on eBay's like got the box set I just showed you, that one, plus this is really illustrative of how little love that the the later sequels got. It's a multi-feature 4-film box set, which is like kind of in a single cover. So it's clearly it's like a really shitty transfer kind of stuff, but it's missing Deader, and I wonder if that's just a rights thing. Hellraiser went rubbish very quickly. It was really kind of scraping the barrel when it got to 3. 3 is just about watchable, but it just feels weird. It feels to me kind of like when you get to about the 4th or the 5th episode of Friday the 13th. It almost starts feeling like all the ideas have gone and they're just really kind of repurposing other stories to make this thing kind of thing. Not to say that most of the all those stories in the Friday the 13th later part were that, but it was kind of felt like that to me. And it's kind of sad really when they're just going, right, okay, yeah, we'll just rebadge it. Hellraiser is the reason comic Hellblazer had to have a different title, or it could have been, or it would have been John Constantine Hellraiser. Okay. To be fair, I did find Nude for Satan at HMV. HMV, what's left of it. Zavvi as well, which is HMV. Some of the stores were fantastic, even for kind of like unusual, kind of obscure sort of titles. That's one thing which, that's going away. It's becoming untenable, really, to do physical media in stores. And I'm finding for it to all go online in terms of kind of like, online shops and stuff like that. It'd be absolutely fine for me. Even if you sort of go 14 quid and they basically get a case and professionally and nicely burn a DVD or a Blu-ray for you. That kind of stuff with a few bits and pieces. That would be fine. Just do it as and when the demand is up for it. Amityville was the same, but one was pretty much Amityville clock. The budget went so like, yeah. They tend to, because it's the law of diminishing returns when it comes to sequels. You get so much money out of them, and then interest begins to wane, and the artistic input goes away. Nobody's interested in writing these things, and they go, right, okay, we're going to do this one super cheap. So there's a story about, I don't know, a mutant dog over there. So what we'll do is we'll we'll take that and we'll put Leatherface in there, and then we'll make it a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. God, there's a franchise that's just been sodomized to hell. I have no problem in saying I think that the Texas Chainsaw remake was probably one of my most hated films. I tried to rewatch it recently. I couldn't get past the first 5 minutes. Second, those the kids get on the screen. I just tapped out, man. I was just like, no, fuck off. It's that Michael Bay aesthetic as well. It's like, oh, good lord. I just absolutely... I know he's not the director of it and all, but he was. It's Platinum Dunes. So you can definitely tell that he's been putting his cock in a developing fluid. Oh, dear. Just checked on IMDb. Apparently, this new Hellraiser film initially has Pascal Lawyer. The guy who did Martyrs. Oh, I thought I recognised the name. Lawyer. Oh, that could be interesting. See, but there's another film. I would describe Martyrs as being very much like Hellraiser 2. Funny enough. And it's a film that sort of is driving one way, then that last act goes completely off the rails. Not enough to make the film suck, but enough for you to go, I wish I'd found another way around this. French New Extremity was an interesting movement. And that was one of the highlights of it. Texas Chainsaw films are a bit of a muddle trying to follow them all. The thing is, they've used the same ideas again and again and again and again. The beauty of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre... I'm going to flash the VHS again. The beauty of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre... I'm just going to get all my versions out, am I? Yeah, I'm going to get all my versions out. Where's the other one? Got at least one more down here somewhere. Ah, well. Okay, so that's my best version. I don't have the Blu-ray, but it's the 2-disc version. I have another version up there somewhere, but I just can't lay my hands on it at the moment without taking a few minutes to do it. But nice steelbook. At some point, I'll probably end up getting it on Blu-ray as well. But I kind of like, no, well, do I need to? I mean, the extras ain't going to be any different, generally speaking. But this has got a lot of stuff on it. So there's 3 discs in there. Don't know if I can get that so you can actually potentially read it. 3 discs in there. A couple of commentary tracks on it. It's a really nice version. To the point that I sort of go, well, what's the point in going Blu-ray with that one? Because, I mean, it's a very grimy, lo-fi, grainy kind of film anyway, so, meh. But, yeah, so... Dark Angel says, I had that VHS and 2 other VHS variant covers too. Yeah, you had the censored version as well, didn't you? Because if you look there, it says uncensored, right? There was a censored version as well, right? Dark Angel knows the difference between the two. I think it's just like it's like literally a couple of seconds or something like that of one of the more brutal moments. Thing with this movie is it is a very, 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 very simple premise based purely on the kind of horror of the events. The events don't have any meaning. There's no sense to be made of any of that stuff. These people are just batshit crazy. And what part of the success of it was really that it was kind of captured that sort of death of the 60s kind of vibe that was going on. So there is no real story behind it. It's very, very bare bones when it comes to story. It's efficient. When I say it's bare bones, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's next to nothing really to say about the film. A bunch of kids travel to find out if their grandfather's still buried in the in the cemetery that's been raided, and end up falling one by one to a family of mad people. There's not much in the way of commentary there, but it catches the zeitgeist, which is one of the things that made it so damn powerful. And because it's so simple, and because you don't know who the everlasting fuck these people are, you know, you have that feeling of kind of like that mystery, like with real life murders. Like, why is this happening? Who could do something like this? Understanding why these things can happen often disarms a lot of the fear. So as these film kind of went on, they kind of tried to say more and more and more. It's a red label. I don't know if the censored one had an orange label. But yeah, as the series kind of went on and on, you know, even with the second one, they started to give you far too much information. These characters become a lot less mysterious. But what are they going to do as well? You know, I mean, you can up body count, and you can, and this is the same with a lot of the big franchises, be it Nightmare on Elm Street, be it Friday the 13th. You can up the body count, and you can improve on the special effects. But it never, ever regained that kind of Death of the 60s kind of punch. Because that's one of the things with the golden era of horror was that kind of transition from the hippie period into the 70s. And the 70s was incredibly traumatic, right? There was a lot of shit going on. 60s was to a degree, but you know, you with America in particular, you were seeing the faltering of the Vietnam War, a rise in violence, domestic violence, and all that kind of stuff going on. There was all sorts of issues. Everybody was losing their fucking mind, you know, and the peace and love kind of thing, and that idealistic kind of attitude of the 60s had gone away. You know, Charles Manson had been doing this thing. There was this horror, real life horror going on, and that tapped into it, and that's something that the others didn't. Not even the second one, and you know, a lot of people loved the second one. I'm kind of a bit like, yeah, it was okay. I can watch it, but I didn't think it was amazing. And it's all of that kind of stuff. That just that film and how it was filmed as well, which is not how any of the sequels were made. The absolute impoverished nature of that filmmaking, the production, really kind of lent into the atmosphere that was translated onto screen. And it's something I don't think Tobe Hooper ever captured again. Not as efficiently. He did capture it little bits, not as sustained as that. But this is the sort of thing that kind of happens with a lot of these franchises. The basic idea of what they are is either misunderstood or it's stretched beyond reason. And Hellraiser didn't need to have a sequel. It didn't need to have the second one. It didn't need to have 6 more or whatever it was after that either. Yeah. I really don't really like how people reduce hippies to Charles fucking Manson. No. That's not what I was trying to do. Although, you know, I mean, the hippie movement is a lot more complicated than you imagine. You think it's a whole bunch of lefties. And it's not that. There's a lot of things going on with that stuff. It's actually kind of fascinating when you start looking at the counterculture kind of end of things in the States, particularly in the States. It's kind of libertarian and anarchism and a lot of that kind of stuff going on, anti-government sort of stuff going on. It's pretty much not a bunch of kind of left-wingers. Not so often communists, or you know, some were. Some would live in communes. Dennis Hopper got on my nerves. Keeps shouting in Texas too. It's a weird one, Texas too. I think for me, I found it was trying too hard. It felt like it was trying too hard. Last House on the Left has the first chainsaw kill out of any movie. Is that true? It's kind of interesting if it is. I'm certainly not doubting you, but I guess it's the earliest one I can think of. Cannibalism in movies is an interesting thing. I would like to put up the Blu-ray extra that I did for Mountain of the Cannibal God. So, on this, which is one of the films I did the Blu-ray extra for, right? There's an extra on there, and I would love to put it up on the YouTube channel, but I don't think I can because I think it takes away from that thing. That's not my main priority. Biggest thing is there's a lot of copyrighted material in there. Although it's used in kind of fair use, I could probably get away with that legally speaking in terms of my channel. They had a hell of a time trying to clear that shit, which I felt very bad about. Because I approached it like a YouTube video. But that was a really, really cool project to work on, looking at cannibalism throughout the years in movies. And throughout kind of like history and storytelling. But yeah. Easy Rider is a good end of an era film. Yeah, there was a lot of them. It was a very powerful moment, in particularly in US history, but it did kind of cross over. But yeah. The hippie movement of the 60s was really don't draft me to Vietnam movement. No, it was more than that. There was a part of that, but don't forget that, a lot of ex-soldiers, when they came back, became hippies. There's a lot of right wing in there, in the hippie movement. To some degree, basically Nazism and all that kind of stuff. It was all over the place. And talk about politics, actual politics. To be honest, you get a lot of reactions to times of war. More people got into societies and alternative groups after World War II. Same thing after Vietnam. Yeah, it does things to societies. And one wonders how damaged society has been by the past, particularly the past 20 years of things like, the Iraq War, Afghanistan War, all these various wars that have been either conducted, by countries like the US and Britain and stuff, or have been done as proxy wars. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 was best of the bunch, very violent. TCM 4 was awful, worst of the bunch. I don't know necessarily. I mean, the thing is, most of them, in fact all of them, really, kind of played on the same ideas. And it was just recycle. There was a lot of that going on. And that is one of the things that you notice. When you watch them back to back, you notice just how much has been kind of, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so we've got to have this. Which is incredibly lazy. I guess they will rely on people not watching them back to back to a degree. The latest Texas Chainsaw Massacres, whether it's the Platinum Dunes ones or whether it was the Texas Chainsaw 3D, were uniformly awful. And these films are going to be bad. One of the real kind of giveaways is when they start doing stuff like calling a character Sheriff Hooper. It's like, don't do that in your movies. Seriously, do not ever do that in your in your films. It's it's incredibly distracting. Because if you're the only people that are going to get that are fans of the originals, and even if they react positively to it and they go, "Oh, that's a cool little Easter egg," you've taken them out of the story at that point. It's just don't do it, because the people who haven't watched the previous ones probably don't know those names anyway. So what's the point? You're just alienating, in some respect, the people who are actually kind of like, the built-in audience and stuff. There are two different versions of Texas Chainsaw Part 3. Yes, there are, yeah. I've got the DVD with the two versions. It's a heavily compromised film as Part 3. It is one of those films that suffered badly. Josh actually just sent me the work print, and I haven't got around to watching it yet. But yeah, so I've got the more complete version, and I've seen the alternate ending as well, which I weren't sure if it worked or not. But yeah. Ken Foray kicked ass in it. Yeah. To an extent, in the original version, he did actually stay dead. Get Major Romero on the phone. Yeah, and it's like, oh, God, really? You're trying to be cute, just concentrate on your fucking story. It's all you've got to do, man. But yeah. Right. I think I'm going to have to call it a day there, because my throat is, like I say, I've got a bit of hay fever, I think. So I think I'm going to call it a day there and stop yakking. But like I say, not next week, not the week after, but the week after that, we'll look at doing a movie or something like that. So the movie I did have semi lined up for today was Devil's Wedding Night. Luigi Bazzella. But we'll save that for another night. You like Part 3? Yeah, Part 3 was alright, but it was just heavily compromised. It was studio interference and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah. No worries, Kerry. I will see you folks in 3 weeks' time. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and try not to despair at my absence as much as possible. God, it's so awful to say. But thank you for joining, and I will see you soon. You folks, take care, and good night.